All right, Matthew, welcome to episode 91 of the Performance Advantage podcast, where we bring sports science to the people with myself, Dr. Will O'Connor, and Dr. Matt Miller. We are both PhD sports scientists with oodles of experience in the world of applied sports science. We make training plans, we coach athletes, we educate coaches, and we research. All of it is to bring sports science to the people, and that's why we created this podcast. So on episode 91, we're doing training phases, specifically the 5 training phases you need to nail your periodization. Now, this, like a lot of our episodes, actually have been distilled down into an amazing course, Matthew.
Yeah, this is from, what was it called? Using sports science to train more effectively. I think we should have our masterclass. It was when we anticipated only having one course ever. And so, but this one was really good. We had 6 modules in that one. And then one module is just dedicated to periodization. And this is how we started it. So obviously, we spent a lot of time talking about this periodization thing. And this is our the phases that we used.
Right. So we did this because we got a lot of really good feedback from last week's episode, which was the 6 steps to planning your training in 2022. And that was like setting you all up with the training side of things. But now, I mean, periodization, Matt, super important. So we wanted to get into the phases, and what Matt and I use on the fundamental level is like these 5 phases in a cyclic manner. So just to get straight into them, we've got the base phase, the event-specific phase, taper, race, and recovery. Which is most important, Matt?
I'm looking at them in this nice little wheel that we have. Which is most important? You know, I gotta say, Will, I'm being thrown for a loop at the moment because we're recording video.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I have to look at my other screen because normally we don't have notes, but this time, since it was in our course, we have notes, which is cool. But it's going to be on video. Everyone's going to see me looking up, down, up, down. So Spotify is doing this new thing where you can upload a video to Spotify, which I had no idea Spotify had that. But we're getting I don't know, I guess maybe we're a little bit special. A pre-release into Spotify video for our podcast. Yeah. So everyone's watching, and I feel the pressure.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone will be watching. I think most people are going to stick
I don't
to
think
listening.
I don't think anyone's going to be watching. And to be honest, I don't really feel the pressure because we've done like a zillion of these. But we used to put them directly to YouTube, and YouTube doesn't care about a podcast style video, so they basically show it to no one.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm wondering, what is Spotify actually going to do here? Are they going to show it to people, or what? What are they trying to do?
No one's going on Spotify to watch videos.
Yeah, but no one used to go on YouTube to watch TikToks, and now they
YouTube
do?
Shorts.
Yeah. So
yeah,
who knows?
That's true.
Yeah, so I'm looking at my screen anyway. So if you're watching video, you can see me trying to decide which is most important.
But you can't screen share. It's just us talking.
Yeah.
But some people enjoy that. So, hello.
So I don't know which is more important, though. Base, event-specific, taper, race, recovery. I think some people listening are going to be like, what the heck are those? Because they're going to have different words.
True.
I remember reading Joe Friel's training Bible, the Mountain Biker's Training Bible. My dog actually ate it, so I only had maybe half of it, and it didn't have a cover. But he called them something different. There was base 1, base 2, base 3.
Yeah, foundation, build,
yeah,
all these different kind of ones. Yeah,
and they all kind of it's tough to I wish there was a set name that everyone used, and maybe there is, and we just invented.
Oh, you mean training zones?
Yeah, well, there's definitely no consensus on training zones,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
a bummer because there like easily could be.
Well, do you know something? So Training Peaks does like you can select which training zone system you want to use.
Yeah.
Like Joe Fio's running or heart rate or Andy Coggan. Like there's all these different ones. And so I saw someone else. They just had like one running power one, which is Jim Vance's one.
Oh.
And then they also had like a default one, which is just Andy Coggan's one for cycling, and it didn't really apply because it's just the way the two measurement systems
Oh, so
work, which we've talked about.
you can't use the Andy Coggins one for running.
I think I'm not sure if they removed it. They had it initially because they were like, running power, no one cares, like just use cycling stuff. And
Yeah.
now they've got they've got the Strides 5-zone system, and they got another one in there. And so there's like 3 different ones you can choose from. And I thought, well, like I'm one of the running power guys, maybe I should have my own zone system so that I at least stand out. Because
Yeah.
at the moment I use Jim Vance's zones because I think they're just the most readily like applicable to everybody. And he's got 7 zones. But I'm using Jim Vance's and I'm Will O'Connor, right?
Yeah.
I'm like advertising for him every time I use the system.
It's like, thank you, Will.
Yeah, but like in my book that I'm putting together, like I reference his training zone system because actually, what was I going to change? I was going to honestly just be around his zone 4 is a lot larger than I'd recommend, but I'm
Well,
going to
then you
change
need to make your own.
2%.
No,
No,
you gotta, because if you go into Training Peaks right now and you work with an athlete and you set their zones, you have so many choices for cycling power.
yeah,
So why not have your own?
consensus. It's like how much different are you going to make because I wanted to increase zone 3 from 94 to 96%? Oh, it is 96%. Sorry.
I don't know. We went over, first off, 7 zones is just, that's a lot.
I think it's appropriate.
You think it's appropriate?
Yeah. 1, 2,
Wow.
3, 4.
Okay. Which is like,
So that now you've got threshold. Now you're going above threshold. So you're going VO2 max.
yeah.
Yeah. And then above that, you need like super high intensity or velocity at VO2 max. And then you need neuromuscular. Now, I'm not necessarily prescribing something in zone 7 or even really zone 6. I'm not like, because it's hard, right? It's so hard. It's like 120% beyond or 115% beyond. But what I do like to do is look at that retroactively to see if when they were doing their sprints, they were actually reaching zone 7, or if across a week or a month, what is their time in zone 7?
Yeah, that's a good point. I have a problem prescribing like zone 6 stuff, especially like on Zwift, because if someone can't maintain it, then they have to stop the interval.
I
Right?
know
When you build a workout, that's
it
kind
is
of
really
annoying.
annoying. Some of those workouts on Zwift are outrageous.
Like the
Em-
actual Zwift ones.
Or the ones people have written,
Yeah.
but like for like, my wife Emma was doing one the other day.
She's doing Zwift in summer?
It was raining all week.
We had a lot. Wow, that was a
Yeah,
lot of rain.
and the forest is just like a lot of surface water.
I even went
Like,
running.
yeah, you did.
That's a couple times. That's how much rain we had.
So she jumped on, and I was like, "Do this one." And so it doesn't look too bad, but they're set such high percentages for such long times. And she is as trained as anyone on Zwift is going to be, bar the pros. But even she got invited to race in a pro team. Like she was a professional cyclist. Like she won the series that we had here in New Zealand. Like, she can, if anyone's going to do it,
yeah,
she's going to do it. But actually what I have seen is that the fitter you are, the higher, the higher relative your FTP is to actually, like, there's a large differentiation between, say, your like everyday zone 2 pace and your FTP. Whereas like the further down the fitness levels you get, the differentiation becomes not as large. So you can you can hit FTP for really long because it's not actually because you don't really have a large anaerobic capacity anyway, so your FTP is probably like lower.
Yeah, but you should be able to maintain FTP anyway. But if you're talking like going over FTP, that's actually a really good point. Like if your threshold is 400 watts and you have to exercise for 30 seconds at 200%. Oh, 800 watts. That doesn't sound so bad. We'll have to rethink of this. We'll have to rethink this.
But
And
it's more so she was doing it was a long ride.
yeah.
Yeah, and so they had like 1 hour at zone 3, again, like pretty challenging, not outrageous, and then into like the zone 5 3-minute efforts. And you're like, this is on paper, this doesn't look too bad. Zone 3 for an hour. Yeah, cool. Pretty challenging. Not too bad. But then you also have no convective cooling. You've only got a fan. You have no, like, you're on the power the whole entire time. Right? There's no hills, there's no corners, no traffic lights, there's no coffee shops. And then you're straight into a dialed 105% of your threshold power for 5 minutes. It's not into, not 5 is like 3 minutes, say. But yeah, again, you had the 1 minute rest. You didn't get a minute and a half because you want to turn around or like just put your cleat and tighten your shoe or have a drink or whatever. Like, it was on.
Saw squirrel.
It's just like, and then you're the problem, and then you're cooked, absolutely cooked, because you weren't ready for 105. Maybe today it was 100%.
Yeah, but she's not training for those events anyway. Maybe she shouldn't be doing like VO2 efforts. That's just like comes down to like how she's trained at the moment. Because 105%, like that's doable.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember the exact workout, but go on and have a look at.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. There are some really hard ones, and you don't get a rest. We'll have to do an episode just on Zwift.
No, just on intervals.
Yeah, we do talk about easy. We keep saying like, oh, we need to do an episode on our favorite interval session. Otherwise, people are going to think we don't like intervals.
No, we kind of did that, but I think more just like with the introduction of structured workouts that's sent through to your device from like Training Peaks or some of these other platforms, and especially like now Zwift, that people just aren't resting enough. They're really set. They think like 60% of your power or pace or whatever is like pretty low, but it's not. Like, especially if it's constant and you don't get to freewheel or anything like that. Like, I think it's more appropriate on this. There's a secret release for everybody because the embargo just got lifted last week for me for talking about this Coros training platform. So if you follow me on social media, actually, please follow me on Instagram.
Please follow us.
I know that sounds desperate, but like I have like 1,200 followers. I know way more people listen to this podcast than that, and it's like it's not fair. It makes it anyway. At Dr. Will O'Connor.
I mean, don't forget about me while you're at it. Actually,
yeah, but you have like 3 times the amount of followers I do. So
Instagram's funny, like because you look at people with a lot of followers and you're like, wow, they must be the most dialed, smartest, like best content person out there. Like, nah, mine's better. Like, right? It's like, how come I can't cut through the noise? Oh, the algo. But the good thing about podcasts is they don't have an algo, right? Like you want it, you listen to it.
Yeah, and you share it.
Yeah, and our podcast speaks for itself. So that's a platform I want to exist on.
Spotify video. Check it out. Coros is a watch manufacturer, a GPS, and they have power integrated within their watch. And they reached out to me and said, like, you're a running power guy. We'll send you a couple watches. Can you check them out? Run it against Stride. Tell us what you think. Like no kind of obligation. Like you're not an ambassador. There's no signed deal. Just have these. Tell us what you think, kind of thing. Share whatever you want. But then they also were releasing this training platform, kind of like Training Peaks. They said, give us your feedback on that. But then I wasn't allowed saying anything about that. can now. They have this structured workout builder. Matt, I haven't even told you about this, that you can set power, pace, heart rate, and maybe something else was the other one.
You did tell me about that, but
Okay.
yeah, I don't worry, I
Did.
didn't tell
But
anybody.
you can, like,
But
within a work, that's awesome. So now I can say, look, you need to run at this power or this pace, and you can do it
that's
on your
cool.
bike. And then you can say, you can't start the next workout until your heart rate hits 120,
Yeah,
like goes below 120.
that's really good. And I have like problems, especially sometimes mountain bikers want a power meter on one bike or something. So it's like, well, how do I make their plan? Is it a power based plan or is it a heart rate based plan? Right? Or
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, to be able to merge them together
Yeah, makes sense.
is so.
It's contingency based though. It sounds like what this is. So you can't start it until your heart rate is this. Well, that might be even better.
Yeah, maybe. I didn't actually test that part out. None of them are ever like, you can't do this. It's not like your workout stops if you can't reach this power output or pace.
Zwift is like that, I'll tell you that. If you can't maintain
Shuts it down,
120,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's hard. That's a hard one with the sprints. You're trying to set sprints and you're like, go hard. But then for some people, like, you've got 15 seconds to sprint and
Oh, right. So
smart
this
training's
is
not
why we
smart
started
enough.
talking about it, is because if you set like zone 7 on Zwift, if you can't maintain it, you have to stop, which means you can't do it. So that we're talking about zones. But yeah, we'll have to redo like a podcast on zones. Like compete against ourselves because it's been so popular. But, okay, so you had a really good feedback from a Steve.
Yeah.
Can you read that? Because we actually had a lot of good feedback on those last few episodes.
Steve, if you've been listening to us for a while, Steve is our hypothetical athlete.
Yeah.
He's Steve. And so this guy messaged me and said, hey, Will, as a Steve, I appreciate all the free plans and podcast reference mentions. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate the quality content you both produce. It's refreshing to hear content backed up with data and science as opposed to the usual YouTuber morons. His words, not mine. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Stay safe, mate. Cheers, Steve.
Sweet. That's cool. So in memory of Steve, with respect to Steve, we're gonna like use Steve for
Steve,
these
mate,
training
here
phases.
for your training phases. Actually,
Yeah.
Steve's I didn't read the whole thing. It was a bit of a long message, but he is training for a
Don't
ultra.
say anything that's gonna give away who the Steve is, though. Right?
He's training for an ultra,
Cool.
and he wants 3 to 4 days a week. That is every Steve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so what we have,
all right.
five,
So we know what we're
steps.
working with. Yep. Okay.
All right,
Cool.
5. We can use anyone as well, like any other Steve might also want to do mountain biking. But you got base phase, Matt, which is, well, it's cyclic because listening to this, you could be anywhere right now. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you're probably not really racing because it's snowing.
Cyclocross.
True. Southern Hemisphere,
This is it.
This is race season.
Yeah.
It's beginning. And so these phases are cyclic. So
what do you mean by cyclic? This is just like the PAP training theory that we talked about last time.
PAS.
Oh.
It goes around in a circle like a wheel. So you can
Yes.
jump in at any point. So you could jump in.
I mean, you wouldn't just jump into recovery and be like, oh, yeah. I'm
You would.
getting off the couch and going to do recovery.
No, but you could be listening to this and being like, I've just finished my
Okay.
race.
Yeah.
So I'm going to recover. I'm not going to get into taper.
Can we talk about that one last? We'll start at base.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what we have on this diagram.
Because that is like the start of it, actually.
Yeah. Okay, base.
Okay.
Go. Does base differ for you? For anyone?
Yep. Totally.
In what way?
Well,
what's your goal?
Oh, I don't know. Are
No,
we talking
not
about?
your goal. What's the goal of base for you?
Oh, well, it depends. Like, because there, especially like with a lot of mountain bikers, we run into some issues where when we get to the really hard stuff, which you obviously need a lot of rest for, um, they can't spend as much time on their mountain bikes, right? Makes sense. But they also can't spend a lot of time on their mountain bikes in base season
Mm-hmm.
because it's like the trails are snowing.
Yeah.
So we end up like potentially doing more intensity in the base season
Ah,
because
okay.
we're going to have to spend a lot, well, because we need bike time. So we have to do more volume later
Yeah.
because we need to be on the bike, but we need to
Yeah.
be prepared for that. So it does like kind of change, but like base season to me means I don't, there's just not one size fits all, but generally we're like really focused on aerobic development
Yeah.
because you need to spend more time working on it.
Generally, what I'll do is for running and triathlon, like you do your aerobic stuff, and then I'll target a specific weakness, but not intensely. So if leg speed or just absolute speed or high power output sprintability on the bike or swim starts or something is a challenge for an athlete, we just incorporate that stuff, but it's downhill strides, it's maybe some uphill sprints and just but like you're doing it and you got like a minute rest, or it's not like we're trying to target the development of a specific energy system. And then depending on how long the base phase is, for me it's during like 3 months, like to look at, I'm going to start preparing for the next phase, which is the event specific phase. So if someone's doing a marathon, a road marathon, then they're going to be doing some long runs on the road. And depending on their fitness level, experience, they might be starting to incorporate some zone 3 stuff just near the end of those long runs. Now, Steve, this real Steve, is he's doing an ultra, right? So let's just assume it's going to be over 10 hours. So he's got to get
Whew.
conditioned
Yeah.
to because if we event specific for me is probably 8 to 12 weeks. So now you've already got a 6 month plan. You got 3 months to build up. You got pretty much 2 months to 3 months to get ready, and then you've got, depending on the event, a month to taper. And we'll talk about like why I've said a month there as opposed to the normal, but what people would consider to be like a week or two. But yeah, so that base phase is like the fundamental is going to be consistency and an appropriate like volume to allow for recovery and adaptation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Like you're focused really on consistency, right? Like you're getting out there, you're not thrashing yourself all the time, right? Because once you start thrashing yourself, yeah, you need some time off, right?
Yeah.
So we're usually really careful in the base period that we're not like totally dead from doing like mad sprints. Um, I remember like when I was like reading all these blogs because blogs were cool when I was coming up through race. Are they cool anymore? Like blog
Um,
spots,
Maybe
blogger.
not like personal one,
Yeah.
like how we write articles,
Yeah.
kind of. I think maybe more like that.
Okay. Well,
People feature on, like cycling tips will have such and such writes about stage 4 of the Tour de France.
yeah.
So they're more like that now. It's not like, and everyone's a YouTuber.
Well, everyone like tells their stories now on like Instagram. But
True.
before Instagram existed, you told your story on a blog, right? So I used to get these training tips from people, tips, if you will, on their blogs. And I remember like some of these like really good racers, they would never get their heart rate above like 150 beats per minute for like all of the winter. And that was what base meant for them. And that meant like endless miles out on the road with frozen water bottles and things like that. And like if you weren't doing that, like you weren't doing base. And I kind of followed that as well, which is like, I guess I tried to, but I often went like too hard, or like way too long or something. Um, but yeah, like that was what base meant for me. And like you get a really good opportunity to focus on aerobic development, which is great. But I think like trying to make sure you like never get into the big chain ring, for example, which is what a lot of people did. It's like, well, maybe you can do a bit better than that and not have to spend like 40 hours riding in the dark.
Well, I have this folder of like unfinished blogs, I guess, articles. And
Yeah.
one of them is "You're not a pro, so stop trying to train like one."
Yeah.
And I was just trying to figure out how to word it so I didn't come across like I was putting people down. But what gets published is not Steve's 3 to 4 days a week sub 4 hour marathon training tips.
Yeah.
It's Dr. Will O'Connor's, top 10 Tarawera finish banger sessions, or like,
NFTs.
um, it's who name the pro you follow, and then insert their biggest week that they never completed.
Yeah.
And that's what we look at, and we go, well, if they're doing 30 hours a week and this many sessions, and I'm nowhere near that, I should at least try to get,
Twice
whatever.
that.
I should at least get some of those sessions done. Um, and and then we end up just being like doing stuff that's non-specific to us. And while, yeah, when you can recover for as long as you want, and you can ride for as long as you want, you can instill a large amount of fatigue and get the recovery from riding for endless hours. But when you have work and a family, you're just tired.
Yeah, well, remember when Kevin Van Hoevels came on, who he was like top 10 at the Olympics
Yeah.
in mountain biking. He was training 15 hours a week. He said sometimes more, sometimes less. 15 hours. That's what I was training. And that's for like, that was when mountain biking was like 2.5 hours long or something.
Yeah, and he said he didn't change his training, really. He did a little bit more, little bit, but he just didn't have to work.
Yeah. So he had more time to recover, right? So, yeah. So, okay. So with Steve's base training then, like what's he going to focus on?
Getting that long run up.
Okay. So like he's going to say have a long run on the weekend or something, like his one long run per week, and he's going to gradually increase the duration of that every week.
Yeah.
That kind
Yeah,
of thing.
so it's you gotta look at time availability. Just one thing. Like, we're getting back into like the planning the training now. The
Yeah.
6 spokes
That was last week.
planning training. But yeah, you're trying to increase the amount he can run in a single go without it like hurting.
Cool.
Yeah. That's what you
I
want
like
to do.
it. Yeah. So you're like, in a way, like the point of base training is to increase your overall resilience, your
Yeah.
overall conditioning,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So whether that means you need to go hard sometimes or you need to go easy all the time, it's going to depend on who the person is and what they actually need,
Yeah.
right? So you're building your resilience. So with the example of the mountain bikers that I'm talking about that need more trail time, so like a gravity specific, they're building their resilience in the winter to be able to actually head out and hit the trails a lot because that's going to be really demanding on their upper body, on their legs as well, and aerobically. So we're spending more time in the gym. We're spending time going hard because we know when we get to the trails it's going to be hard too. So we're conditioning them for that, which is more event specific.
So then event specific is what we termed the next phase. And this is where huge differentiation happens between the events that you're training for. Like in the base phase, depending on who you are, a marathon runner, an ultra runner, a 5K, 10K, half marathon runner, they could all do the exact same thing. Like, very similar. Ultra marathoner, we're probably going to go a bit longer, and the other ones we're probably going to do like a little bit more intense for that long run. But if everyone was just doing, not just, but everyone's doing 3 hours at the weekend, That's fine too, because we're all getting the fundamentals that we need to lead into if we do quote unquote real training in the event specific phase. So here we're targeting one, the event, the specificity of that event. Because sure, it may be ultra, and this is going to be a podcast in itself, but what kind of ultra are you doing? You know, like where are you doing it? And
Yeah.
what are the conditions going to be? Like, because some are going to be running, and some are going to be like run hiking, you know,
Right.
and some are going to be overnight, and some are going to be at altitude, and some are going to be like, yeah, massive elevation, technical. There's all of these things.
Yeah.
Some are going to be like, you're going to have to carry a lot of compulsory gear, whereas others are going to be like loops on an athletics track.
Yeah. I know why you're bringing this up, and that's because of what Emma's training for, which is like a 5-day race, right?
Minimum 5 days.
But like that doesn't mean she's training for 5 days straight, right? She's like training like you would for a normal ultra in a way, obviously doing like different kind of exercising because she
Mm,
can't run for 5 days straight. It's going to be a walk
yeah,
at a fast pace with a bag.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it in that case, like you're talking ultra, my ultra's 5 days. Here's what I'm actually going to be doing in it. And the ultras you're doing, like when you did that one around the track where you almost died, or was that a different one that you almost died?
There's two, I
Oh,
guess. So,
so
nah, I was probably pretty far away from dying. It was
ah,
heat exhaustion, you know, like that's
uh,
pretty safe.
that's not safe. That is not
Well,
safe.
like I passed out and then cooled down and I felt better. Whereas at Tarawera, I like was still throwing up 3 hours afterwards.
Okay, well, neither one sounds good to me, but
We spoke about both of them. Just scroll back through our episode
yeah.
list.
So when you were doing an ultra around a track, that was a lot different than what Emma is preparing for, which is 5 days of.
Well, it's even a lot different from my other ultras on the trail, right? Because I didn't have to have a camelback. Right? I didn't have to
Oh yeah,
carry anything. I could have access to it every 400 meters. Everything I needed. Uh, but I had to run constantly, consistently, like in the same plane of motion. Like
this
there
just sounds
was,
like a bad idea.
uh,
So when you're doing
yeah,
event specific, because we're talking Steve is like probably going to go 10 hours. Steve's not going to train for 10 hours, just like you weren't training for 24 hours and Emma's not training for 5 days.
hmm,
So if Steve's thinking, okay, I'm going to be running on trails, right? Because it's going to be a trail ultra, I'm guessing, because I don't know why anyone else would put themselves through running on a track for 24 hours. Steve's thinking, okay, now I guess I got to run for 10 hours, right? Is that what Steve's going to do?
well, he's like an avid fan of our podcast, so he's probably figured out that's not the best idea. Uh, and but no, you can't. Okay, so I mean, yeah, 5 hours, pretty manageable for most people, and I say that from someone who can run the whole 5 hours to someone who's going to walk or hike for 5 hours. Both those people, through my experience, are able to handle that duration in time, and they can get bang for buck and development and conditioning out of it. When we start to go, or let's say we did 10 hours, you're wrecked. 10
Yeah.
hours
Oh
is
yeah.
essentially your whole day, and you've just eliminated what if you've just got tired
Yeah.
and increased your risk of injury drastically without reward. So we're looking for that. We're looking for two things. One is your actual conditioning training development, and then the other is we're looking for identifying your limits to develop a pacing strategy. Okay, so where Steve is like he can run. He's reasonable runner, right? So let's say he's doing 100 Ks, not 10 hours. That's rapid. 12 hours. That's like your top end 100K age group runner, right? Someone who can run probably like a sub 4 hour marathon kind of thing, which is quick. It's above average, I'd say. So what I do is I go, look, here, you need to run for 5 hours because you're going to have to run for twice that at least. And then you can look at how they fall apart across that fight. What happens? Okay, so you got the development, you got the conditioning, and then you got like the mental exposure to being out on the trails that long, and you got all like the peripheral experience of like, I didn't drink enough, the shirt rubbed, my socks gave me blisters, blah blah blah. But then also I can see like, look, your heart rate was at 160 by hour 3, and then you walked for the last hour. So now we have the data we need to say, this is probably what it's going to take over this kind of terrain, and this is what you should start out at.
I got a question though about Steve. So if Steve is doing like 3-hour runs in base phase, like for our die-hard base training, old school, people that trained with heart rate monitors before you could upload any data, those people, they're thinking base phase is when you go long, right? So why are you going faster? I'm just asking, like, why are you going longer in event specific? Is because the specificity of the event, like the main difference is that it is longer? Or like, what are we doing around that longer run?
Yeah, the specificity of it is that it is longer, because I haven't met someone who can do 5-hour runs from the base phase through to the next 12 weeks of event specific. It's
Gotcha.
It's far too demanding to even just like mentally. So some athletes, I might they might say, oh, I've got this cool loop or this this run I want to do, and so we can factor that in. But 3 hours is very manageable. Matt, I don't know what you would suggest the percentages of completion of a training plan would be on average, especially for someone who's not self-coached. So it's not like, specifically tailored to their like needs. But it's less than 80%.
I don't know. You can't, but you can't.
But anyway, like, yeah, you can't. The target is the fact that the length replicates intensity as it would for someone who is going to do a half marathon.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. I guess I overlooked the point of how difficult like a long run is. Because with cycling, a 6-hour ride, like you're good, right? You'll be fine soon. Like the next day, potentially, if you're really well trained.
Yeah.
I guess running is just that much harder. So like we still might do those massive rides in the off season, even like as we get event specific as well. So I guess that's where that difference comes. But with your question before, some athletes follow a training plan to a T.
Yes.
Right. So you need to be like, this is where it's like tricky to kind of plan in if someone's like, oh, they might not follow this one. So, or they might do extra here or something like that. Because some people do it exactly as it's written. I wish like
all of my plans have like descriptions to allow for both.
Yeah.
Like over the years, I've developed soon to be fully completed like 200 plus plans, and I've added in like my knowledge base.
Yeah.
So you can click through, you can read. Okay, I see what I'm doing here. Because some people, yeah, they're just gonna, if there's some training peaks, they're just gonna do it. It's gonna go green, and it's gonna be ideal. But then other people, you're gonna be like, I don't know, is this more important or is this more important?
Yeah.
Or I've done this, so does that mean I shouldn't do that now? Because this one was optional. Anyway, yeah, so going through to event specific is for the ultra is that event specific thing is, and then if you're doing 100, like Steve might be doing 100 miles. So now we've got, 100 miles is going to be like 30 hours.
Does that take that long?
And it takes that long. Like,
Man,
generally like the belt buckle, if you've seen those on completion of like the
like
major ultras.
Leadville.
That was that ultra I was trying to tell you about the other
Oh,
day. Yeah.
yeah. I don't remember why we were talking about it, but
Because of Western States.
yeah.
But you got to go under 24 hours to get some of these like special finishing.
It's like you are
paraphernalia.
cool if you get the belt buckle under.
But if you don't go under 24 hours, you get something. You don't get it, right? So 24 hours is like you're going really quick. So 30 hours is pretty average. Pretty average. I mean that in the best possible way.
Nicest way possible.
You can't train for 30 hours, and we have a look at the average pace, and that's like over 10-minute Ks. I don't even know what that would be in minutes per mile. 16.
We used to approach mountain bike races because I used to do a lot of the 24-hour mountain bike races. Yeah. And you don't train for 24 hours, right? Like unless your training might be the race that you did like 3 months ago that you're still tired from or something like that. There's this dude, I forget it. His name was Cameron something or other. He raced for Gary Fisher.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, Gary Fisher was separate. He used to do like 24-hour training rides on a single speed, I think, like one gear. And he used to write on his blog about like these massive saddle sores that he had. He was really good. That's like all I remember from his blog is his saddle stories. But no one else was training 24 hours, right? So the world champion, Chris Etoff, who like lived kind of in the area, we all used to race the local XC scene together. I think he was like 7-time world champion. He used to like just kind of train normally and do like 100-mile mountain bike races once in a while and like do local XC races. So those 100-mile mountain bike races weren't taking that long, like maybe 7 hours, which like we said, like on a bike, if you're really, really highly trained, it's hard, but you can recover. Obviously it's going to vastly depend on how trained you are, but he wasn't training for 24 hours. I guess that's the point. He would do like 2 of those per year. So if you're talking like Steve's Ultra is going to take 24 or 30 hours, he's obviously not going to train that much because he has 3 to 4 days a week.
Yeah. So I've worked with plenty of athletes in that realm, and we're not going more than 8 hours. Right. So you've got to find you're managing fatigue and aerobic and physical conditioning. So you have to be able to recover. You have to be able to recover. Otherwise you're sick or you're injured and you're not getting to the start line. So you can't. We talked a lot about this actually when we said I'd signed up for the 24-hour national champs, but you're going to slow down 100%. And what happens after a certain amount of time, 16 hours, say, like you don't know. You don't know. Who knows how you're going to handle that? And you can't train for it because you'll dig yourself into the biggest hole trying to run for 16 hours to find out if you can keep running or you're more of like a hike, jog,
Yeah.
And also, Matt, you've been in 24-hour races. There's highs and lows. There's
More
like
lows and highs.
There's points where you think this is it, might as well pull out, but then you come back and you're like going faster than you were a few hours ago. And that is the journey that is ultra running, right? So that's something you're going to be you're
so philosophical now.
Enter into later. So yeah, besides maybe like 2 elite athletes that I've worked with who are going to be able to run, and we need to figure out how they're going to be able to run the whole entire thing. Most people, it's like, how can we ensure that you don't slow down, right?
Yeah.
So how can I ensure that you are mentally and physically prepared for everything that's going to be thrown at you on race day? And so that is like, yeah, doing a 7-hour run, and then the next day running on a flat terrain for 2 hours, and you're just like smoking your legs. And so
Yeah.
it's like, look, this is, so now we've only done like 9 hours of training over a weekend, which is manageable when it's well planned out, and you've got exposure to the level of muscle soreness you're going to have, and exposure to how hard it is going to be physically and mentally to actually run, so that right at the beginning you need to chill
Yeah.
out.
That's a good lesson to learn. I think like one of the things that I'm hearing is like that's really consistent among whatever sport you're training for is that when you get to the event specific phase, it's going to be hard. Like your specific sessions are going to be hard.
Hard.
And when you're training hard, you do need to make sure that you don't have a lot of other hard sessions, right?
Yeah.
So we're focused a lot on rest, whether that's easy exercise or actual rest, and then we're focused on those hard sessions that are a lot like what our event's actually going to be.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a good rule of thumb for event specific. But you mentioned earlier that like a month-long taper. So you're tapering for a month? Is Steve going to taper for a month? Because that's our
Uh,
next one. So we got base, event specific, and then taper.
yeah. So we get through the event specific, and we're not doing those every weekend. They'll probably be every second weekend, and then we'll incorporate like a long run overnight. Again, like he's going to be running through the night, so we need to just prepare for that. But that's going to make you massively tired. So we just alter things around that. So he's going to get through that event specific phase, having done like figured out what kit works, got all the chafing, all the blisters out of the way, all the night terrors and the hallucinations of done. And now we're
Now it's time
into,
to taper.
so with taper, uh, you want to be, the goal is to maintain fitness and maximize freshness.
Yeah. That's
Right.
key, right?
Just
It's really important to note here. This is part of training, right? So like base, event specific, taper, we're saying, okay, time to like recover, right? Like get a bit of rest in there.
yeah,
Resting's training, right?
it is. So with the ultra running, the fitness component is not as large. So actually, I was just reading a research article that came out last year, and they was saying for 100 miles, the biggest predictor of performance was cross training. So it was actually just kind of like your ability to continue to move.
Mm.
So by cross training, you developed, you know, I guess your cardiovascular system, but also like some of these other stabilizing different muscle groups that you end up using when you've exhausted everything for the last
That's interesting. You have
20
to send it
hours.
to me. Can you post that in the description, actually?
I'll put that in. That's a great
Yeah.
idea. Because it wasn't speed at training or training at a particular speed or particular VO2 max, percentage VO2 max, lactate threshold. None of those marathon performance measures.
So you're telling Steve like you need to play tennis too or something. Like
Yeah.
you need to like
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because you go mountain biking and stuff.
Yep. Yep.
And what other cross training do you do?
I
I know you were throwing around some iron not that long ago.
I was actually, yeah.
Yeah.
And last summer I did a swimming 3K, 4K. It was almost 4K swimming event,
Sheesh.
open water. Yeah. And obviously play with my son. He's like a bag of potatoes, so just lifting,
Yeah.
throwing him around.
Chasing him around.
Like fun.
Yeah. Sounds
um
weird.
so in the taper, are you for an ultra, if you have any fatigue in your system, in your legs,
It's going to come
It
through.
will come through.
Yeah.
Man, I've been just absolutely flying in some sessions, like some, like some tempo sessions or like the local 5K running series. And then I've gotten into some events over 4 hours. And I was like, there it is. I wasn't ready for this.
Mm,
I just wasn't. So 4 weeks out is where we'll do the biggest session. Okay, the biggest
4 weeks
session.
out. Wow.
Yeah. So that's yeah. And then maybe like me, I've done 10 like 100K ultras. Now I can go 3 weeks out, but even then it'll depend on how my training's been going for me to be able to rid myself of that fatigue. But still, we're still gonna, like, if we're 4 weeks out and we do whatever 8 hours, or maybe like a back-to-back 6 hours, something like that. The week after, we're still doing 4 hours, which is, if we think back to base training, not far removed from what we're doing on base training. So we should
Yeah.
be able to, like, now in the taper for the final month, we're juggling conditioning. How do we ensure that we maintain conditioning to run for 20 plus hours, but then also get on the start line being like, man, I'm just can't wait. Can't
Yeah.
wait. This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah, that is tricky. With cyclists, mountain bikers, obviously, we like our tapers aren't that long, and that's because our event specific stuff isn't as huge. So like even if we do need to do like a 6 hour ride to prepare for that big event, they can recover a lot quicker. So we're talking like a 2 or 3 week taper, kind of depending on the rider
Yeah, I
and how
have a
conditioned they are.
I'm not sure if I have a blog, but I'll link to the video I did on tapering. So I kind of said, like, yeah, like 5K, you can do like no taper,
Yeah,
almost, because it's going to take whatever, around 20 minutes or so, and you just need to be a bit fresh. So just chill out. But you probably weren't running for 4 hours the weekend before either,
right.
right? So, but then when you start to do half marathon, you start need to work back because the last session you did was probably like a few hour banger,
Yeah.
and you need to chill out on that.
Yeah. So
And
with
within the
tapers,
yeah, you go.
I guess what we're doing is we're hitting those. It's event specific again, but we are focused more on rest. Like there's
Yeah,
a
so we're
greater
trying to
emphasis on rest.
maintain what needs to be maintained.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? If it's speed and anaerobic work capacity, we're trying to maintain that, and we're just like, we don't need long stuff when you're trying to do a 20-minute all out.
Yeah.
No need. Let's get rid of that, and that will get rid of the fatigue that we are worried about, and that will increase our freshness. But we can keep hitting those ruthless sessions to keep the anaerobic work capacity in.
Ruthless.
and um, and then with an ultra, it's kind of the same again. Like, we need to keep that conditioning. Who cares how fast you can run? Who cares? Like, was that taxing you a little bit? Get rid of it. Like,
Yeah.
let's chill. Let's cruise. And yeah.
So how do you see the race phase being different than the taper phase?
Uh,
So that's next, right? So we
well,
taper
so
into
the
our event.
reason we put that in there was it's no different for, like, the race is just the race for an ultra. But like, if you're doing the track season, I guess we could have put season, maybe.
Yeah. This is something that we've been thinking about a lot, obviously, like because in New Zealand, the race season got pushed back so much. So the races, like because lockdowns, they got pushed from like October, November to like now everything is in January, February.
Oh yeah.
So like back to back to back to back to back to back, like ending with 2 stage races back to back. So it's like pretty insane. So like we're focused. Okay, we did our base and then we did our event specific. The events got canceled. Okay, luckily we didn't taper, so we can keep training. But now we got this massive race period. Obviously, we need to taper in uh, because there's like an important event to start. But then we need to like stay fit throughout these 2 months. That's a tough job, right? I'm like
Yeah.
banging my head against the wall, like trying to figure out what to do. But like one of the things that always sticks into my head is we looked at what Kieran had done for his, like when he was doing all the Xterras,
Yeah.
right? And then we looked at his CTL chart and training peaks, and his fitness just like it just went down all year, right? His fitness, quote, air quotes fitness, but he like raced well all year, right? So he stopped doing these really hard or really long sessions and he focused on rest all through this race period, this race season. And he continued to perform really well because he had like this massive fitness built up. It didn't actually disappear as it looked like on the chart.
And some of the things we talked about within the course was that you can kind of use the same cyclic phase within the actual race season. So
Yeah.
you do a race and you're like, okay, need to do the recovery, need to do a little bit of the base or event specific taper into the next race. And so this, it just becomes more, it's the micro, meso, macro cycles of training.
Yeah.
And yeah, the taper stuff, we also talked about the compensation, super compensation, overreaching, overtraining. Again, like other more, additional topics that all overlay
Yeah.
this.
There is a lot more to this, right? Because we did a whole module on it. I don't even know how long that was. This
Was
is
just more
like,
efficient.
yeah, yeah,
We weren't like discussing it; we were just presenting it.
yeah,
Um, and but yeah, for if you're really interested in this kind of stuff and you want a resource, it's you purchase this course, you have it forever, and there's all these like short 3 to 5 minute clips on all these different particular topics that we're discussing here, as well as the slides. But for this, yeah, so the race map for an ultra, that's it. You don't,
yeah,
if we think about that transition from like taper, event specific to taper, for an ultra, we may do a short ultra. Like you may do a 50K, not with the goal of like smashing your PB or outperforming, like optimizing your performance to go get in there, get a race in, because racing is different to training, and just
yeah. But come on, no one's gonna go in and like race to not get their PB.
yeah,
What? Why even do the race? Why don't you just train?
no, because you don't get the exposure to or having all of the people around and like making poor decisions and like so
That's a good
well
point. Making poor decisions. Yeah. Like pacing, like totally wrong.
yep,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one because when you have a series of events, you don't like I was doing some track running. And there's an event every weekend. I can stuff it up and do it again next weekend. You do one ultra a year. You do 100
Yeah.
mile a year. Don't stuff that up. Don't
That is
stuff that up.
runners and triathletes have like such a different approach. Like mountain bikers and cyclists were like, well, this is what I do. I'm going to race every single weekend. And if I do both, I'm going to do both every weekend. But like triathletes are like, yeah, I have one race coming up in 2025 and I'm training 30 hours a week for it. Like, what?
That's some are like that. Some are that yeah, but you're right. Like I do not recommend that because you know what it's like. Your first event, we have so much content on pacing because people get it wrong every single
I was
time.
thinking about this every day. I was like, what's the one thing that you could do? Like the cheapest thing you could do to get like 10% better. It's like actually focus on your pacing. It's like the cheapest thing you could buy is, you know, you
Yeah,
get way better just by pacing properly. But
yeah.
we've driven that one into the ground by now, talking about it.
Uh, and in an ultra and like 100 miles, like the consequences are dire. My
Yeah.
consequences.
Yeah.
I was literally almost helicoptered out of the forest. Like I
Like
was,
5Ks from home.
yeah. It was so you could you could be thinking you're gonna do 26 hours and you can end up doing 32 hours. Like that's the level of, whereas, yeah, you do a bike race, you get dropped and you didn't want to get dropped. So you ended up either like maybe pulling out or just like rolling home. It's not like you still have to run 40 Ks.
Yeah. Ugh.
On top of the 120 Ks you've just run too fast.
Yeah.
So then we have the race. However that goes, it goes. Then we have recovery. Now this is important.
Yeah. Say it again.
This is important.
No, what it's called.
Recovery.
And then say this is important.
Yes, recovery is important. And so the two situations I've been in where I have not listened to
your own advice.
Yes. Or you.
Or my
or
advice.
my wife. Or
Yeah.
the books, literature, everything. are pretty much both scenarios you're going to find yourself in. One, I raced incredibly well and I thought, what's
You're
next?
Superman. Yep.
What's next? I feel fine. Next one was I raced horribly and I wanted to like get back out there and redeem myself. In recent times, I have, like, for ultras, I've been like, nope. Like I've even like scaled back on all my commitments outside of training, just because I know like the level of mental and physical fatigue, just exertion you put out on race day, even just like the couple days beforehand when there's these massive events, is phenomenal, and you don't realize it till later, until you go to do your other event. You go, oh yeah, I'm not, or you try to get into, the third or fourth week of base phase, and you're like, yeah, I am wrecked.
Yeah, it hits you eventually.
Nothing's for free.
Yeah.
I remember this podcast.
It is definitely for free, and the only way to support it is to buy a course or training plan from us. But with the recovery phase, I remember after I did my first ever 24-hour race, I got second and finished in a sprint finish. I won the sprint, so I beat the guy for third. But, yeah, not like I lost the sprint, right? I lost the race, not the sprint. But the next weekend, I raced a cross-country race. There was no thought of like, this is when I have a break, right? Because it's like base race season from March to October, right? And you're doing every race, right? I never once thought like I need a rest until I was so deep in a hole that I couldn't get out for like 3 years, right? It sounds like a made up story, but it's like totally true. And I just dug myself a hole for months and months and months because I didn't actually focus on that recovery. And the problem was, and this is like one of the problems, is like you need to think of recovery as like mental recovery as well as physical recovery. And when you're dealing with a highly motivated individual, you can't convince them that they're ever going to need any sort of extra motivation because they're so highly motivated that they can't even fathom that they would need more motivation. And that's where I was. And that motivation actually lasted for like quite a long time, because you can like, I don't know where it came from. There's like no point. But I was so motivated that nothing demotivated me, even when I was performing like extremely poorly or like overtraining and things like that. But now when I look at it, when I'm dealing with a highly motivated individual, which all my athletes are, we're putting in a recovery period because you're going to need it. Like you're going to need to draw on additional motivation at some point because training is going to get hard again. Because we're training for that next event. Like we're already looking ahead. Like what is that next one? Okay, we're pulling back now because you can't stay motivated forever. Like I love Michael Bublé, right?
You do.
But I'm not gonna listen to Michael Bublé every day for the rest of my life, right? Because I'm just gonna get sick of. I mean, it's Christmas, so like, go hard, but not forever. Because you're gonna get tired of it. You're gonna want something fresh, something new. So like having that break from Michael Bublé now, like could potentially ensure that you love Michael Bublé forever. And that's always the goal with athletes. So when we think about this recovery, it's as much physical as it is mental. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, you want to be proactive, not reactive.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm wondering if the motivation was also addiction, because when like we've got our episode on our overtraining experiences, and I'm thinking back, and I'm like, how was I was putting on weight, I was performing worse and worse, and I was training more and more, and like every poor performance motivated me more to do more, like,
Yeah.
and crazy chronic fatigue, but nothing was stopping me.
Yeah.
Nothing was stopping me on my journey
Yeah.
to get to the destination tomorrow.
Yep.
And yeah, and that's
It's
who we.
hard.
It's
It's why like maybe there's something wrong with us or something that we like we continue to keep going.
but you
But
learn,
yeah.
right? So just the other week, I was telling you how I didn't want to stop training. Like I had a down week planned. You're like, oh, the Superman effect.
Yeah.
Like I did like my 3,000 meter PB, and the next day I did a 40K run. Yeah, so because I like to incorporate speed well for my ultra build up. I've got about 8 weeks to Tarawera now. And I was like, I just want to keep going. I
Yeah,
feel
like
fine.
I am Superman.
And so that was, so yeah, I had the down week, forced myself. I said, no, no. And then I had another 3 week block, which I've just finished. Last week, I needed every ounce of mental energy to get me through that week. Like honestly, I felt physically, my runs are all my power outputs, heart rates was low. Like I'm fit, I'm real fit. But I really couldn't be bothered.
Mm,
Like it rained all
yeah.
week, and it's summer here, and then like we're about to. Yes, it's almost Christmas, so we're about to go on holiday, and I got a lot of loose ends I need to tie up before I leave. And then I had a 6 hour run on Saturday, and it's like I'd rather not do it. I'd rather like so now I've got to do the 6 hour run plus everything else. But yeah, if I tried to train through, no way, no way. My whole training would have been like in pieces by now.
Yeah. It's always better to err on the side of recovery. Like, that's what I find. It's like, yep. Okay, well then we'll recover. It's like, okay, let's stop talking about it. Like it's not a issue anymore. Like we're gonna recover. Because that is like you tell me like um and this is where we kind of really depend on the athlete to be open and honest and like trust that the decision that's going to be made next is for the purpose of being better, not for the purpose of like making you slower.
Yeah,
Because I do have like some athletes like they don't want to hear the word recovery, whether it's like a recovery week or a recovery between events, and then they do it a few times and they're like, all right, now I get it. But then still like it is difficult, like when you have that really good feeling or maybe potentially a bad feeling, to think that recovery is the best thing for me.
yeah. Well, you'd look at taper is the same. Like when I was putting my plan together, I was just like planning out when I'd do my last run, and I'm looking, and I'm like looking on the calendar, and I see like 3 weeks from my last big run to the race, and I'm thinking, there's no way I can hold fitness for.
No, you know what you're thinking is you're thinking I only have 3 weeks left to train,
Yeah,
right? But that's not it, right? That's not it, because this training thing is a cycle, right? So you start at base and then you kind of eventually come back to base. And we consider all of that training. That means tapering's training, racing's training, recovery's training, basis training, event specific phases training, right? And all of it is training. So just because your final like big workout as part of your training plan for your major event, because that is in 3 weeks, that doesn't mean you're done training, right? You're done doing the big stuff and it's time to like actually reap the benefits of all the hard work that you've
yeah.
done.
No,
So
I yeah.
I know you know that, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah, yeah.
that's important point, is like, you don't have just 3 weeks left to train. You have 8 weeks until your event or whatever it is.
Mm,
And like, this is all training.
yeah. No, it's but that is one of those things that is hard for these large pinnacle events, like an Ironman. You gotta pull it back for a few weeks, and you think the last time I did a 6+ hour session was many weeks ago, and now I have got to do that faster. But we know how it works. We know how physiology works.
You
So
just gotta trust the process, I guess. And that's the hard
um,
part.
yeah, and then we're after the recovery, we're back into the base, which could also be like maintenance or whatever, and we do it all again for the rest of our lives.
It's like the definition of insanity. Do the same thing. Now, like, obviously, year to year, you make small changes. You find new weaknesses. You have new events to
Change
train
the
for.
events, yeah,
Yeah. COVID. This is going to be an excuse for like the next 8 years.
yeah. It's why my like Camelback hasn't arrived for the last 3 months. Yeah. All right, Matt. That'll do
Cool.
us.
Yeah. Cool.
Uh, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everyone. If you're listening to this over that period,
Yeah. And if you're watching this on Spotify video, see ya. Give you the thumbs up.